After another year-long hiatus, the Bratz are back this fall 2018. This is Jen Next from soartothemax.wordpress.com. Many of you probably didn't realize the Bratz had even left the scene. Many of you may have thought the Bratz were long gone before 2018 and may not understand why they had to even take a year off. You might be thinking, huh? I thought the Bratz left in 2009. Some of you kiddies may have already consumed yourself with smartphones and iPads and are like, people still buy dolls? So for all of you lost individuals, I will be here to bring you back up to speed. What happened to the Bratz all of these years? For those of you who didn't know Bratz left, or for those of you who thought the Bratz left a long time ago, or for those of you who only know about the 2015 comeback and nothing more, I will bring you up to date. Let's go all the way back to 2001 first. At the turn of the 21st century, many doll companies were trying to win tweens back into the doll market because so many were distracted by CDs, TV, video games, and anything else but dolls. By the age of 10, many girls were beginning to feel they were too old for dolls. Many people felt girls were growing up too fast, and companies suffered from that loss of tween consumers. So, in an attempt to encourage tweens to play with dolls again, many companies tried to make toys that would appeal to an older crowd. The only dolls that were successful at this were the Bratz dolls. Bratz has always been a doll line that has fought through major challenges and has overcome much opposition from critics and competition. When Bratz was first released in May 2001, the Bratz were not received well at all. It wasn't until December 2001, the holiday season, that kids began to recognize the Bratz dolls. Ever since then, the Bratz slowly began climbing their way into the doll market until they were able to take 40% of the fashion doll market from the biggest fashion doll in the world, Mattel's Barbie. I collected both, by the way, since the 1990s. That really may not seem like much, considering the doll industry is much larger than fashion dolls. But considering at the time fashion dolls were really popular prior to 2001, it was a huge accomplishment. Bratz dolls were the first fashion dolls to rival Barbie in popularity. Mattel was the powerhouse toy company of the 1990s, eating up Hot Wheels, Disney toys, and even American Girl. When Bratz arrived on the scene, Mattel had competition from another growing toy company, MGA Entertainment. MGA was unique. First off, people of various ethnic backgrounds could relate to the CEO, who was not Caucasian. This impressed upon those who disliked the white blonde Barbie and her influence. Second, he was not afraid to take risks when it came to dolls. Ever since the 1980s, Barbie had already begun to lose her appeal. When Mattel tried to add more diversity to the Barbie line to compete with the popular gym dolls in the 1980s, Mattel distinguished Barbie from the group by making her signature color pink, which limited color choices in fashion for Barbie. In the 1990s, so that she could appeal to soccer moms, Mattel tried to scurry away from her fashion doll label and began designing her fashions around various careers and ambitions, kind of similar to what's been happening with Bratz. Bratz, on the other hand, wore hip-hop fashions and had a modern, urban appeal. They related to real teenagers. Many of the doll clothing was of higher quality than Barbie had been at the time. Many of the Bratz fashion was also trendier and not as, well, pink. As the popularity of Bratz grew, word spread about the rebellious dolls. People began to take them seriously, and critics began examining the Bratz, especially soccer moms. The Bratz wore a lot of makeup, revealing or suggestive clothing, had big heads, glossy eyes, huge lips, and called themselves Bratz. Prior to 2004, there were no movies giving the Bratz much depth as far as personality, so kids could make them any way they wanted. If a kid didn't have a computer, they wouldn't know who the sporty one or the glam one was because they wouldn't have been able to see their interests on the website. There was also no particular message that parents deemed positive. There was no message associated with the Bratz in that regard. It wasn't until the movies and TV show arrived that morals like friendship, strength, courage, and creativity, the huge when it comes to doll lines, it wasn't until the TV show and the movies arrived that was implemented. Those qualities were implemented. When Bratz began capitalizing on movies and their music albums, the Bratz popularity skyrocketed. Bratz began moving away from their urban roots and started taking advantage of their edgy reputation by trying fashion styles that were completely out of the box. Mattel, desperate to keep their hold on the fashion doll market, came up with new doll competitors for the Bratz, Mycene dolls. Mycene took advantage of the current emphasis on New York since many were still recovering from 9/11, and they tried to implement more urban fashions into the Barbie line. Mycene was a hipper and more fashionable version of Barbie. The lead character was still Barbie, but she took on the glossy-eyed look and bigger lips that the Bratz had. Though Mycene looked a lot like Bratz dolls, Mycene were decidedly prettier and more natural than the Bratz. Their feet were not stubby and their bodies were more realistic in some people's eyes. Neither of them had the posable bodies we see today, because that came with the Live dolls. But they had fashion any tween could want or dream of. Both fashion doll lines were relatively successful. However, MGA felt a bit insecure with Mycene looking so much like the Bratz. They were obviously afraid people would confuse the two and give Mattel money for Mycene, not seeing the real difference between the lines, though they were different in many, many ways. MGA filed a lawsuit in April 2005 against Mattel, claiming they stole MGA's doe-eyed look and used it on the Mycene dolls. This was a big mistake. In 2006, Mattel filed a lawsuit against MGA, claiming that the main creator of Bratz, Carter Bryant, was working for Mattel while he was designing Bratz, which technically meant Mattel were the true owners of the Bratz. Mattel had some good proof. Mattel was awarded money for the Bratz dolls, and all dolls were ordered to be removed from shelves in 2008. This case was appealed by MGA in 2008, and the recall was halted. During this halted process, Bratz were allowed to return to shelves until it was finalized who truly owned Bratz. In 2009, the companies gained another lawsuit from Bernard Butch Belair. He filed a lawsuit against them both because Carter Bryant, the originator of the Bratz, claimed to have been inspired from a Steve Madden shoe ad Belair created for 17 magazine. Mattel stepped out of that case, okay? MGA took it on and prevailed, but they still didn't have complete ownership of Bratz. For the rest of 2008 and 2009, Bratz stepped out of the doll scene. After all of this mess with Carter Bryant, he was let go from MGA, which made them suffer because he was the main creator of the line. Court battles have been going back and forth between the two companies, MGA and Mattel, ever since. These court cases greatly affected the Bratz dolls. With so much attention in court, it was clearly evident that Bratz were secondary. The Bratz dolls were starting to show less individuality, lower quality, and focus on Chloe and Yasmin, the two most popular dolls that would get them revenue, rather than the four core Bratz characters. When Bratz were removed from shelves, that gave other doll lines just the space they needed to shine. Monster High was in the works, playing on the edgy success of the Bratz. Basically, Monster High was supposed to be edgier than it turned out being. Monster High eventually formed its own identity, though. Suddenly, in 2010, MGA announced that Bratz would make their comeback to shelves. Everyone was excited, expecting the edgy Bratz with the amazing quality. Instead, we got dolls that played it safe. Most of the dolls wore really quiet, normal outfits. Many of their outfits covered them up completely, adding leggings where a skirt was too short and jackets where a top was too cropped. I suppose MJ was trying to appeal to the critics and parents, just trying to get the dolls back on shelves because the court cases had severed their ties with retailers. Retailers no longer had trust in MGA as a company. They didn't feel secure with Bratz because no one was certain who owned the Bratz dolls for a period of time. But apparently MGA was finally able to get some of the rights to the dolls. But in order to get the dolls back on those shelves, MGA had to appeal to those market buyers. But the dolls, while they might have appealed to the critics and the parents, it didn't appeal to tweens or fans anymore, the people who matter most. To add, the quality was low. Cheap quality outfits like painted on leggings, cheap hair, recycled and reused clothing and shoes, one outfit instead of two as they once had, and hardly any accessories destroyed the doll line. Later, MGA admitted they rushed the new Bratz because they were eager to bring the dolls back to shelves. Still, they tried to make the dolls work, but the quality was just awful. Finally, in 2014, MGA announced that Bratz would go on another hiatus. And in 2014, MGA released this statement. So here's the deal with the Bratz. We finally got the go-ahead to give it the time and backing to make it awesome. We want to really dig into the direction of Bratz, what makes the brand awesome, and bring that back full force. In order to do that and to have the epic comeback that the brand really deserves, we are taking a year off. We are giving ourselves and the buyers a chance to cleanse palettes of expectations so we can come back in 2015 and deliver something cutting edge, disruptive, and awesome. Throughout the year, MGA was accepting new ideas, so many Bratz fans hope that the new dolls would be better than ever before, or at least be back to their original glory. When they released the new dolls in 2015, after a year-long hiatus, it was disruptive, all right, but it was not what many Bratz fans expected. The dolls were completely revamped to appear much sweeter and more wholesome than they once were, so they could satisfy some feminists and moms who were against the Bratz. Though there were some people who were fine with the new Bratz, they didn't stand out in a market filled with sweet and wholesome dolls. It wasn't enough to garner any public attention from the presses, as the press thrives on news that stands out. Furthermore, despite MJ's efforts to make the dolls sweeter, some feminists and soccer moms still found the dolls to be a bad influence on children, stating that the dolls continue to wear too much makeup and promote superficial values. In 2015, the feminist movement was at its height, so fashion dolls took a tumble in the market. There was also a demographic shift from the tween teen audience to the child audience. Particularly the target was age 6 to 10, the age that MGA and a lot of doll companies felt were still playing with dolls and would still buy the dolls or would still get their parents to buy the dolls. This disconnected a lot of fans from the brand. Bratz became popular because once it appealed to the older demographic, it was guaranteed to appeal to the younger crowd who are more influenced by their older siblings, cousins, and neighbors. So it appealed to a wider demographic at one time. But the 2015 Bratz disconnected older fans. The 2015 Bratz were written off as childish and thus even failed to appeal to even the children it was designed for. Commercials lost all of their sass and began focusing on children rather than tweens and teens like older commercials. Older advertisements with the Bratz were bold and trendy, not cheesy. The older commercials also really took off with people of color because much of the music had an urban flair which relates well to people of color who live in urban communities and connect with that culture. The new dolls seemed to align better with people who were not of color, which further disconnected a lot of people from the brand. The other issue is that some people hadn't realized the dolls had even gone from shelves. Bratz had been gone so long, you're gone 2 years to people, they move on quickly. But they've been gone so long, people nearly forgot about them. People had long placed their interests in other doll lines or other things in general. And Bratz 2015 wasn't exciting, unique, or different enough in the doll industry to bring interest back to people, especially not to the presses, as mentioned before. As a result, there also wasn't enough promotion or coverage on the dolls. As they say, even bad news gives promotion. Bratz dolls' boldness is what made people talk, because it was different. These dolls weren't bold enough. These 2015 dolls, they weren't bold enough to warrant discussion. But also, they weren't family friendly enough to even satisfy these feminists and soccer moms who demanded the breast to change. So no one was happy. So by the time some doll collectors had heard about Bratz dolls' comeback in 2015, Bratz was headed to another hiatus. Why would MGA recreate the dolls to look wholesome, you might ask? MGA felt pressured by feminists and soccer moms to make the Bratz dolls more family friendly. They've been getting this pressure since 2001, since Bratz was released. But the difference was back then they were fresh on the market, Bratz were selling, and the doll industry was different. MGA had security with retailers, but after the court cases and after the retailers feeling unsure about who really owned the Bratz, MGA lost a lot of deals. Okay, they lost a lot of deals from that. So in order to get Bratz back on shelves, a lot of their PR firms and all these other marketing teams, they told MGA, or they advised that MGA change the Bratz to get them back on shelves. Okay, we could tell MGA was focused on changing the Bratz to be more family friendly because they shared an article from parents.com called "New Bratz Tell Girls It's Good to Be Yourself." With one of their sentences, this is one of the sentences from the article. It said, they've got a look and message that won't make parents cringe. Okay? So that was right after the 2015 dolls were released. MGA shared that article on Facebook and Twitter. So you could tell that they really wanted parents to approve of these new Bratz dolls. They felt that that was what was necessary to get these dolls back on the shelves. And then when tree change dolls were released, many feminists were more in favor of purchasing those dolls than Bratz, though that didn't hit the ground running either. Obviously, feminists have had a huge impact on parents and youth. A lot of the feminists are parents themselves too. So dolls are now often associated with toxic femininity. I was reading a great article by Miss Stephanie Finnegan of dollmagazine.com, and she eloquently put it that way, that dolls are now often associated with a femininity that we want to rise out of. And girls, who play with these dolls or who like dolls are going to be considered babyish or lame, or fitting into their gender stereotype, for being into dolls. Okay, we don't make the same issues for adult men who are into comic books and video games, but I guess dolls are supposedly far more immature and far more toxic. Again, those opinions have slowly influenced the minds of youth. Some girls are too ashamed to even admit they like dolls, especially girls over the age of 10. That's becoming even more of a thing now. I mean, people are not as ashamed to like things that people consider babyish, because now we can see people online, we can join communities of people who like the same thing. But in our very real world, in our very real life, if we tell people that we like dolls or we like to collect dolls, people will judge us, or people will judge, people over the age of 10 who still like dolls like the Bratz. Okay, unless they're a famous celebrity, then everybody might be gung-ho with it. But if you're just a regular person, you're talking with a friend, if you say that you like to collect dolls, they might look at you funny. Okay, and so that carries more stigma than liking video games and liking comic book movies, like all of the Marvel movies ever invented. But there was another issue, going back, there was another issue with the 2015 release. And that was trying to get the dolls on shelves in the first place. I managed to have a brief conversation with Carter Bryant, the original designer of the Bratz dolls, on my blog. He actually commented on my blog, and he has brought to my attention that retailers run the industry. He stated that one of the market buyers at Walmart was the reason the Fashion Pixies and many other dolls received such a drastic makeover. Because retailers didn't think some lines were family friendly enough for their shelves, they wouldn't purchase the Bratz unless there were some changes made. Just take a look at the differences between the prototype and the final product of Fashion Pixies. might ask, why were market buyers so concerned? Bratz has given them millions of dollars before. Why would they demand the Bratz change in order to bring them back to shelves in order to feel secure? And the reason is because moms have even more power over the retail industry than retailers themselves, especially mothers with young kids. Therefore, if moms don't love it, retailers won't buy it. And there were more soccer moms than supporters in 2015. There are more soccer moms than mom supporters in general, okay? And with feminists acting against any brand that promoted fashion and makeup, it seriously hurt the Bratz. The Bratz had to undergo some serious changes even throughout their biggest years just to remain on shelves. They went from edgy lines like Wildlife Safari to a line about pixies and flowers. So, in fact, the whole fashion doll industry has taken a hit. Every time I walk down a toy aisle, the dolls are ultra boring with few accessories and bland outfits. Toy companies feel the pressure to lessen the emphasis on appearances, and that affects the doll industry as a whole. Okay? This is aside from the fact many kids aren't even playing with toys anymore. They have far more distractions than even the kids in the 2K era had. I was reading up an article on millennials, and this article stated that some companies have been so busy focused on trying to reach millennials that they looked up, time passed, and they realized they're now faced with the post-millennials. And they can't keep up with them because they couldn't reach the millennials fast enough to even be able to catch up with the post-millennials. So that affected the toy industry. And then a lot of high quality toys cost too much as well. A lot of parents can't afford them, so they would rather buy cheap toys for their kids, even if the doll comes with nothing but a shirt, some pants, and some shoes. You know, this hurt once high quality brands, and it forced companies to make cheaper looking, low quality dolls so they can sell them for cheaper prices. Because of this, in the discussion when I was discussing this with Carter Bryant, he also stated that even if he were working with MGA to this day, he would have little power over the design of the Bratz, especially if Bratz were to return back to store shelves. And that's because retailers have so much power over what goes on the shelves. And that's because moms have the power over what they buy their kids. And they do have that right. But this affects brands like the Bratz. So Walmart and Amazon are two of the leading store chains to this day. Basically, Bratz would need to appeal to them in order to get back on shelves, even in 2018. So now this brings us into 2018. The young people who were fans of the Bratz back in the 2K era, a lot of them are now becoming mothers themselves. And just like the generation that grew up with Barbie, we grew up with Bratz. And that's how the cycle goes. What was once taboo is now the new norm. Barbie was once taboo, now she's a family-friendly product because the adults that grew up with her didn't see the same thing as their parents. Well, it's the same with our generation in Bratz. We didn't really see what our parents saw in Bratz. So we're able to support Bratz a lot more than our parents had. So it's new generation. In 2018, the feminist wave has calmed down a bit and people are reevaluating what being a feminist means for many women. Kylie Jenner's tweets last year have also brought interest back to the Bratz, so maybe that can promote the Bratz a little more. And then finally, MGA has teamed up with Hayden Williams, who was a fan favorite illustrator and designer, to create the new Bratz dolls. A lot of Bratz fans have been, a lot of doll fans in general have been analyzing his illustrations, and a lot of fans really requested that Hayden Williams be the primary or at least one of the designers of Bratz. And so far, only a collector's exclusive line has been announced, but so far it looks really good. Most fans have been largely supportive. Thanks to social media, news about the Bratz is able to hype them up once again before it even hits the actual news and before it even hits stores. So I'm kind of happy about that. That's a plus. And after looking at the few teaser images, the Bratz seem well on their way to becoming the truly disruptive and cutting-edge divas they once were. They seem to be living up to their fashion passions, Yasmin with her boho retro vintage feminine attire, blending different styles to make one look. Chloe combining her sweet and sassy nature, being all dramatic. Sasha bringing some old and new school hip hop vibes, sporting her experimental and flashy look. And Jade just destroying all fashion rules. Yes, the Bratz are back, baby. This time, I can say that with a straight face. Of course, there are some people who can't appreciate the outrageous looks the Bratz are sporting right now, even if the outfits truly live up to what the Bratz stand for. You can't please everybody. But we are all glad, us Bratz fans who like the edgy look. We're glad that they finally got a designer who understands the core of the Bratz and is a huge fan. So far, Mama Dollhead likes. Okay. I get the feeling that people overseas may not get the new outrageous fashion, because people tend to conform more in certain countries, but hopefully the Bratz girls revive trends and start new trends along the way. Already there are some fans who aren't really feeling the newer artwork. Some fans especially think Yasmin's look is dated, though she is supposed to have a dated look because her fashion passion is retro and vintage. So I would hope that she revives some old trends. And I like that the Bratz aren't pleasing everybody. I think that that's what makes the Bratz great. It's not a large majority of people complaining, but I want everyone to understand that with a negative review comes heavy responsibility. What I mean is this: every negative review can turn potential buyers away, which can influence the sales of Bratz, which will determine how long the Bratz stay. Every negative review determines the type of designer that eventually handles the Bratz. Every negative review determines how far the Bratz go in their style. And I'm ready to see them go far. I'm ready for them to turn heads, shake up rooms, get people excited, and make prudes angry, okay? So if these Bratz really aren't your cup of tea and you think it's time for the Bratz to retire, by all means express what you don't like about the new Bratz dolls. That's how I felt in 2015. For me, they were so uninspiring. I was like, the Bratz are better off retired. But I just don't feel that way with these Bratz. With 2018, I see the potential. I feel Bratz are back. They're shattering all expectations, okay? They're setting trends, not following them. And I just love it. I love every moment of it. So far, I'm quite pleased with the teasers. I'm just patiently waiting to get my hands on the dolls. Hayden Williams told me that he was hands-on with the fabric. He said that he picked out all the fabric. He made sure, I don't think he just told me this. He think he posted this on Twitter. He said that he was been hands-on with the fabric. He made sure that it was high quality. So I have high expectations. Will I expect the Bratz to succeed this time around? Because even though I love the dolls, and I think a lot of people love them, will I expect them to succeed? That's another question. I can't say. Aside from the fact the toy industry is suffering, especially with the closing of Toys R Us, and the fact the Bratz might not be public friendly enough for retailers, moms, feminists, and casual doll collectors, people who like that standard trendy fashion, it's difficult to determine. And then the price, we don't know the price. I've heard that the dolls are ranging between $50 to $70, which is a lot for all 5 dolls. So I think the Bratz need the following ingredients to be successful, and y'all are welcome to disagree. I find that the dolls, this is a collector's edition, so they might have to be a little expensive, because Bratz, we're coming out of nothing, okay? So they need that money. And if we want high quality dolls, they're going to cost a little more. So I understand the cost, but I also know that this might be a little pricey for others. But I think the Bratz need the following ingredients to be successful, and y'all are welcome to disagree. So let me get into those ingredients. Ingredient number 1, sassy advertisements. Whether it's a commercial or an online ad, it needs to have a tasteful tune. It needs to appeal to an older crowd. It needs to be sassy, and it needs the amazing animation within it. 2015 was cute, but that was the problem. They need to get people talking again. As Jade said in Starring and Styling, it doesn't matter what they say as long as they spell the name right. Bad press is better than no press at all. We have to make Bratz a hot topic once again. That means we need to shake up people. We need to get them talking. And those sassy advertisements are going to make Bratz stand out. We need to start doing ingredient 2. The Bratz need to maintain their edge. Will Bratz cave to fashion critics, soccer moms, and smurfs, radical feminists against the sexualization of media? Will they cave this time? Can MGA maintain Bratz's edge amidst people who just don't get them and probably never will? Their best bet is to maintain what keeps their core fan base around, because trying to appeal to too many people outside of it will not guarantee success. Parents buy what their kids will play, so just listening to moms isn't going to be enough to get kids interested again. Furthermore, many of the critics don't buy dolls anyway, so would appealing to them mean anything? We definitely have to make sure we appeal to the core fan base first and foremost. The third ingredient, MGA needs to recognize the Bratz dolls' strengths among PC culture. Okay, the Bratz aren't going to be everything feminists and moms desire, but they have their strengths: sass and diversity. Their sass and confidence should be played up in advertisements, 100%, and we know it will be. Just looking at the, artwork, I have confidence that they're going to bring it this time. But their diversity is also another key component, and that's the big gap in the toy industry. Yes, we have a lot more dolls of color on toy shelves, but a lot of them are whitewashed. I looked at Disney's Pocahontas doll recently and could hardly recognize her. So they definitely lightened her skin tone. Okay, so hardly any of the Descendants dolls are dark skinned. So, there's a market out there for dolls that are of diverse colors. Okay, and even though Barbie has some diverse dolls as well, the problem with her is we all know she's still the center. She still gets primary advertising time. Okay, she's in all the movies. She's in Toy Story. We don't see Black Barbie in Toy Story. Okay, so there's a market there to help those girls of color shine. So why not have lines that celebrate Bratz diversity? Lines with, Sasha's hair natural. Why not have lines that honor ethnic holidays? That lines like that honor Black History Month or Cinco de Mayo or St. Patrick's Day. Just examples as to how Bratz can play up their diversity card. Ingredient 4, that website. I get people on apps now, but a decent interactive website can go a long way in promoting something too. Because before I get into an app, I want to know what you're about. And so you still have to make sure the website is decent. Just because you have a crap load of apps doesn't mean the website should be neglected. I'm personally hoping to see the bedrooms return as well as the shopping center and such. The website really promoted the doll well for me. Kids still like to go to those kinds of websites, especially kids who don't have the latest phones or tablets and such. And it'd be great to have a little shop section on the website too, so people can buy the dolls from the website. I think that would be the best thing. Ingredient 5, quality over quantity. I'm already hearing Bratz fans complain that we're only getting one line this year. We should be happy we're even getting that. When Bratz was first released in 2001, they only had one line. They needed to build themselves. It took them months to climb. We can't expect the Bratz to have so many lines when they haven't been on shelves long enough to generate a return. MGA needs to see how well these dolls do. Personally, I would rather 1 or 2 quality lines over 10 something cheap and low quality lines like they were releasing in 2010. If we get 1 quality line this year, I'm great. Good. And then the rest of us can save our money, and buy these dolls, and we'd have time to do it. Especially if the dolls are expensive. Wouldn't it be better to try to save for 1 doll line than 10 expensive lines with high quality? I think it was better when Bratz just came out with a few lines a year, because in 2015 it was just too many lines to keep up. Back in 2005, excuse me, not 2015, 2005. It was too many lines to keep up. With. So I think it'd be better to just have few lines at first, kind of see where it goes, and then as you build your resources, then start expanding on the Bratz. But you guys got to be patient. It's not going to happen right away. I'm kind of starting from scratch, okay? And we have to expect it to be like it was in '01. Ingredient 6, the packaging. No emojis and ostriches, please. Theme-inspired packaging is the best. I love that a lot of early packages were designed like purses. It made moving around with my dolls so much easier for me. Please leave the emojis and ostriches back in 2015. I don't want to see that. All that colorful rainbows and smiley faces. No, no. And ingredient 7, the final ingredient, they need to allow buying opportunities online. Because retailers control the doll industry, MGA may not be able to rely on these major retailers to sell their product. With everyone going online, I feel it would be better to start with selling Bratz online. Of course, it won't get the same backing and promotion as if it were sold in stores, because then MGA could utilize the support of the retail chains. But at least online, they could sell their own brand the way they want to sell it. And I thought this would be a good idea, at least for exclusive lines that don't pass market buyers inspection. So, like, for those little, neutral, public friendly lines, they can give that to Walmart and Target and the rest of y'all who don't like outrageous fashion. But for the collectors who like Bratz for their edgy fashion, who want you to bring the edge and the trash and whatever y'all don't like, bring it to us over the website. And I mentioned this on my blog in 2016, and also in the proposal I sent to MGA a couple of months ago. So far it looks like MGA took my advice in some way, or maybe they were thinking the same thing all along, which is good. And they decided to start by selling this new exclusive with Amazon, another major retailer. So I believe this was a smart move. Because until Bratz starts selling like hotcakes again, I believe this will be the best option. And I am so glad MGA decided to start with this. I think it's the best thing, especially if they want the Bratz to be, back to where it used to be. I think this was a good move, and I'm glad Amazon was able to pick the dolls up. Well, that's it, guys. I've caught everyone up to speed. If you have any questions, concerns, or corrections, leave me a comment and I will address it. Thanks for listening. Ciao.
Let's talk about fashion. Let it on my passion. Crazy about your action. I'm crazy about your action. My action.